Hi, I'm Nicole Bernard. These are my note cards. As stated in our Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. But I'm a woman. Am I equal? I wear combat boots just as some men do. Am I equal? I believe in equality for women, but I don't believe in equality for women when it's being part of infantry units. You cannot physically or psychologically equate men and women. The good, which would come from women being in infantry, does not outweigh the bad. After having completed a survey and research, I hope to be able to persuade my audience that the battlefield is not the correct place to hold a gender equality war. I will demonstrate how women are not as physically nor psychologically as capable for infantry as men, and how this could cause more harm than good. First, let's look at how women and men differ physically. Women lack testosterone, the building block of muscle and athletic bodies. Because of the differing build, women's bodies are not made to sustain the physical requirements and demand of an infantry career. It's genetics, women aren't as strong. Lexa Lee, writer for Livestrong.com, explains that through research, she's found athletic differences between men and women have much to do with the innate characteristics determined by genetics and hormones. These include height, weight, muscle mass, body fat, and aerobic capacity. As a group, women do not run, jump, nor swim as fast as men. Women are also more prone to certain types of athletic injuries than men. In the same article, How Do Men and Women Differ Athletically?, Lee explains how testosterone enables the growth of larger skeletal muscles, larger heart, and allows for production of red blood cells, which absorb oxygen and give men the aerobic ability. Lee, through Olympic competition records, explains the average gap between men's and women's performance is 10%. Military standards are set accordingly. Air Force Personnel Center lists the physical fitness standards for Air Force personnel. Women under the age of 30 are required to run 1.5 miles in 2.86 minutes more than men have to complete the same mileage. Men must also complete 15 more push-ups for the minimum component to pass than women have to. Now let's look at psychological differences of men and women. Captain Lauren Serrano, a weapons and tactics instructor in the U.S. Marine Corps, wrote in her article, Why Women Do Not Belong in the U.S. Infantry, that acknowledging that women are different, not just physically, than men is a hard truth that plays an enormous role in this discussion. Men are more prone to doing irrational or dangerous things than are their female counterparts. Kingsley Brown, author of Co-ed Combat, New Evidence That Women Shouldn't Fight the Nation's Wars, wrote that a study of toddlers found that boys were significantly more likely to approach hazardous items and that boys were more likely to retrieve the item than rather pointing and merely looking at it as girls did. So boys from an early age like to live life on the edge. What about as they age? Brown also addresses this. A study of awards for heroism by the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission provides additional evidence of men's greater risk-taking. From 1989 through 1995, the Commission recognized 676 acts of heroism, 92% of which were performed by males. If this isn't enough psychological evidence that men take more risks in the moment, we can take it to another level. From Serrano, who instructs tactics in the Marines. She states, infantry leaders feed on the testosterone and masculinity of young men to increase morale and motivation and encourage warrior ethos. Few jobs are as physically and emotionally demanding as the infantry, so to keep the Marines focused, the infantry operates in a cult-like brotherhood. Lastly, women being allowed as part of the infantry units will cause more harm overall. In a survey among both men and women, all in the military, I found that both agree the male psyche in combat would be altered if women were allowed in combat with them. 15 out of 17 said that it would change, and the 2 that said it wouldn't change were both women. Of the 17, some said that they even believe women should be allowed in combat, but that still didn't change their second question's answer. If women are allowed, what's the next step? In her book, Women in Combat, Civic Duty or Military Liability, Lori Fenner, a proponent of women in combat, states opening remaining military positions to all qualified individuals and requiring young women to register for the draft, if we require young men to do so, are simply the next logical, practical, and necessary steps in our military's and nation's evolution toward our ideal civic responsibilities and equality. I don't know many women that would want to register for the draft. Even so, say women agreed and that we're equal, our bodies cannot handle the long-term stress. If women lose the physical ability to serve because of this strain on their muscles, which aren't genetically made for that strain, we lose a large, important piece of the composition in our military. It will cost us more money and ultimately valuable experience. In her article, Get Over It, We're Not Created Equal, Captain Katie Petronio, U.S. Marine Corps officer who has deployed several times, writes, even if a female can meet the short-term physical, mental, and moral leadership requirements of an infantry officer, by the time she is eligible to serve in strategic leadership positions, there is a minuscule probability that she'll be capable of serving at all. Historically, women had to fight to gain rights, to divorce, to vote, to be in the military. These battles were not fought in the midst of a war. In conclusion, I believe that women should be kept out of the infantry. The battlefield is not the place to hold a gender experiment of are we equal? To quote Serrano, before you disagree, remember that war is an unfair business. Adversaries attempt to gain advantage over their enemies by any means possible. Enemies do not necessarily abide by their adversaries' moral standards or rules of engagement. Although in today's world, many gory, violent war tactics are considered immoral, archaic, and banned by international law or Geneva Conventions, adversaries must still give themselves the greatest advantage possible in order to ensure success. I believe to do this, we must guard our infantry as it is, sexual bias included. Women are not as physically nor psychologically as capable for the job as men. They do not operate on testosterone. Testosterone is how infantry officers rally the troops. Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, morale is the greatest single factor in successful wars. The morale is good now. Why interfere?